Thank you. Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one question for Secretary Hagel and two for Secretary Kerry. Secretary Hagel, in my congressional district is Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where as a result of the President's sequestration, which I opposed, over 12,000 people were furloughed. I've met with some of those people. They had difficulty making house payments, support for their children, car payments. They were concerned about their finances. With the President's sequestration, basically they were told that the Department of Defense did not have enough money to pay them. And yet now the Department of Defense is telling the American public that it has enough money to take us into this conflict in Syria. How do you explain that to those people who lost wages and are facing the prospect of losing wages again in 2014 due to the President's sequestration?
Well, first, I have made my position known very clearly on sequestration, and I've restated it here, so I won't. I don't think I need to address that again. It's irresponsible. It produces exactly what happened on furloughs, and the decisions we're having to make now will have to continue to make if sequestration continues as it is the law of the land, because the Congress and the President agreed to that as a mechanism. That said, to your specific point, as you also know, that we took 5 of those previously announced furlough days back because of really focusing on where we could find the money to essentially improve our operations. We took that money out of
But Mr. Secretary, you understand that they don't understand how it is that you would not have enough money to pay them, but yet you have enough money to take us into a conflict with Syria.
Well, I'm going to get, if you allow me to get to the second part of the answer. It's important everybody understand that issue about furlough. So we took 5 of those furlough days back because through a lot of very astute management and robbing from our future readiness, by the way, to get that. Now, your question, if in fact there is a strike if in Syria, it is now the middle of September. We go into another fiscal year in about 2 weeks. So a significant amount of the cost of that strike, obviously anything that goes beyond October 1st would be in FY 2014.
Which currently is subject to sequestration.
I'm sorry?
Which currently is subject to sequestration.
Well, everything is subject to sequestration. But you ask a specific question.
You said you're going to take it out of next year, but again, to say to those people who are not getting paid, they're having their pay reduced, they're looking at sequestration stopping in 2014 because the President has no proposal on the table, no leadership.
Well, that's not true. He does have a proposal on the table, and I introduced it. But if you want to get into the budget debate about that, we can. But he does have a proposal on the table. I would also answer your question this way: the national security of interests probably trump budgets. That's up to the Congress to decide that. I think that's important. No one anticipated this. We were trying to plan as best we could to take down another $32 billion in the fiscal year that we're still in, anticipating taking another $52 billion next fiscal year.
Secretary Hagel, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think anybody quite understands your answer, but I appreciate it. Secretary Kerry.
Glad to write it out for you, Congressman.
Thank you. That I would appreciate. You keep citing the Syria Accountability Lebanese Sovereignty Restoration Act of 2003. You did in your opening comments. It's in the President's proposal for military action. Most of the people in this room weren't in Congress in 2003. This act was about Syria occupying Lebanese territory. It was about Iraq, support for terrorism and weapons of mass destruction. But it was a sanctions bill. It wasn't authorization for military action. But interestingly enough, it included a provision requiring that the State Department notify Congress every year about where Syria is on weapons of mass destruction. Here is the report that the State Department delivered July 9th. I'm going to ask this to be entered in the record. It includes this statement: our intelligence community has assessed with varying degrees of confidence that the Syrian regime has used these weapons, meaning chemical weapons, on a small scale in Syria, specifically the chemical agent sarin. This was July, so this must have been sometime in June the State Department was concluding this. We know that allegedly Saddam Hussein used chemical weapons previously on the Kurds. You've said there's a century-old standard that we must take military action or there will be rampant use of chemical weapons. Clearly there have been chemical weapons that have been used during that century-old standard that you've said was in place, but yet no military action occurred. Why is this different?
Well, it's very different. That's a good question. It's different because
First of all, the President was not racing to try to use a military action, but he
Mr. Secretary, would you please answer that for the record? His time